Oh, hi. Hey, everyone. So I am going live today with my friend Ash Spivak. I believe that's how we pronounce Ash's name. To talk about her new book, what is it again? Why did no one tell me? I'm really excited to get on with Ash because this book is all about birthing nowadays and what you need to really know and how birthing has totally changed in the last couple of years. So this is an up-to-date guide on that. Anyway, she is asking me to join right now, so we will jump on. Hey, Ash. Oh, no, you're not there yet. Oh my God. It's the end of the day. So anyways, just for anyone who's joining right now, hi.
Okay. Hi.
I can see your
Let
boobs.
me move my wasn't set for a split screen. There we go.
I know, the split screen is a little confusing because I'm usually like down here. That's usually how it is.
Let's see.
So I'm trying to, figure this out. Slowly.
There we go.
How are you?
Oh, hanging in. It's so nice to see your face, though. How are you?
I know, it's really good to see you too. I'm fine, hanging in. I feel like it's still the roller coaster of life right now and getting accustomed to whatever this new normal is. And also, just like trying to navigate talking about a book that's coming out or has just come out, which brings me to your book. Congratulations
Thank you so much.
on your book being out in the world. It's like the strangest thing, isn't it? That we're in
so
this
strange.
time.
I know. And back at you. It's so fun that they're around the same time.
I know. We birthed our book babies.
I know. They're actually sitting next to each other in my, like right by my fireplace downstairs right now.
Oh, look at that. They're already best friends.
Yeah.
I know. That picture with Abby was really cute today. I loved it. And I actually just talked to her and Ricky today about my book and all the things. But yeah, I wanted to talk to you because I know that we've already had a conversation around giving birth during this time. And I know you probably did not even dream in your wildest dreams that you'd be putting a book out right now, which I think is so relevant and so even more important now because of the situation that we're in. So I'm curious, first of all, why did no one tell me about this? Or no one tell me, not about this, right? I keep screwing
Why did no one tell me this?
The
gist, the same general gist.
Sorry, girl. Oh my God. It's like 6 p.m. Although I know it's later for you and I'm done for the day.
I know that feeling.
Oh yeah, right. So anyways, tell me about that. Tell me about what, how first of all, what your book is about, why it's different to all the other birthing books and like how it's, really relevant right in this moment.
Yeah. Well, yes, there's no way that I ever could have imagined that this would be the time. But in some ways, what I think is really interesting is so much of what birth is, right? Like it's literally, you are confronted with humans' biggest fears and you have to confront them, right? You have like no control over the process. It's totally unknown. You don't know when it's going to start. You don't know what it's going to feel like. There's loss involved. And those are the exact same themes that we're all moving through right now as a world. And so it's just really interesting. I am a birth doula, have worked as a birth doula for many years, and that's a lot of what our training has been for. So it's really interesting to be in this moment as a world and have to like really call on our skills as doulas into our own lives to be like, okay, you have to contract in order to expand. And how do you breathe through these contractions that we're all in right now?
Metaphorically, wow. Yeah, no kidding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So definitely interesting timing. And I've been again, just like calling on my own skills to self-doula. And one of the big emphases in this book, which is a bit different than some other books, is just that we really address the mindset, which is also quite appropriate for now, and lead people through different ways to slow down, tune in, get grounded throughout the experience. And then the other big way, which is also really important for right now, is to remind people how they can advocate for themselves in hospitals. To remind people that just as they can say no, just that they can say yes, they can also say no. And how to sort through and navigate conversations with their practitioners, particularly now. Obviously, it's a little bit different, right? So many institutions' policies are changing. So what's nice about the book is it isn't about one specific policy, because across the United States at every hospital, policies are different, but more so a conversation guide, which is super valuable for right now.
Mm-hmm. I could not agree with you more. And I'm actually just thinking about that. You know, what do people, I mean, because the policies, of course, rules have changed so dramatically in the last 30 days. What are some things that people can be doing right now to advocate for themselves that, you know, look different to what it would have looked like, I don't know, a couple of months ago?
Totally. Well, one of the things is just get really clear on what's happening wherever it is that you're giving birth, and have that open conversation so you can know what to expect.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one thing. Things are changing all the time. So it's, even if right now, you know, you're supposed to give birth in a month from now, things could change next week. So just continuously checking in to figure out what the current policies are. If you're giving birth at home or in a birth center, I'd really have the conversation about what transfers are looking like. Just, you know, that's a conversation everyone should have anyway if they're giving birth at home. But again, like in the time we're in, that transfer may look different than it would have otherwise. Right. And then I'd say, and this actually goes, coronavirus aside, is for people just to stay home as long as they can if they are low risk, if they isn't another medical reason why they planned on going into their birthplace earlier. That way you can limit the amount of time spent in your birthplace and really, you know, limit exposure and be able to sink into your Libra a little bit more.
Your Libra. Oh, you're Libra. I was like, you're Libra. I'm like,
Well, I am a Libra, actually. I was like, hey, how did you know that?
That was a random guess. Okay, so tell me a little bit about the LGBTQ approach that you took in the book, because I have never really seen that in a birthing book. And maybe that's because I haven't really read a whole lot of birthing books because I'm not having any babies anytime soon. So I'm just curious if, you know, if that's relatively common, or, you know, what it is that, you know, is included in there for that segment of the population.
Yeah, totally. There definitely are some amazing books out there that are centered for LGBTQ families. But I will say, across the board of general birth books, a lot of times the language is, you know, mothers, moms, breastfeeding, women. So we really try to use inclusive language as much as possible, recognizing that not everyone who does give birth identifies as a woman. And then we invited, I don't identify as queer or gay, and we did invite fellow practitioners of ours, Alexandra Garcia, who's a Chinese medicine doctor and acupuncturist, and Morgan Richardson, who's a dear friend of mine and also a doula who very much serves that community. So we were really lucky to have them share. We have a whole section of all of their wisdom, top tips to think about in terms of second parent adoption, depending upon where you live, and just some of the other, so much of the book also addresses fears. So the way that it's organized, or like, here's some of the top fears that come up prenatally, postnatally, and there are special concerns, and so here's your way to kind of navigate those from their experience, and really working directly with that community as a great resource.
Yes, absolutely. And because obviously one of the bigger concerns is discrimination and not getting the care that someone who is cisgender would get.
Totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. We see that all the time.
Yeah,
so,
I know.
Yeah, and you know, little ways of, oh, like, is that your sister? You know, things like that.
Oh, wow. Nice microaggressions. All right. Yeah. Well, what about, first of all, I love the way the book was laid out, because it's interesting. I kind of laugh a little bit with my friends who, you know, had given birth recently, or at least in the last couple of years for the first time, because writing a book feels like that. It kind of does feel like, why didn't anybody tell me? Although all of my friends who've written books at this point, they have all said to me, well, we told you. And I kind of joke that that's the same thing as giving birth, isn't it? Like, you can be as prepared as everything and have this whole great plan, and then that completely goes to shit. Totally. In many cases. Yeah. Totally. So yeah, I'm curious about that. Like, if you have thoughts in the book about that, and what people can do, or what you advise.
Totally. Yeah. So much of the book is actually getting rid of the idea of a birth plan, because you can't. It's just what you said. Like, it is absolutely impossible to plan. And, you know, sometimes even things, the reason why it was called In Part Why Did No One Tell Me This is because we feel like even though so many people who can give birth do give birth, or who, you know, it's such a common experience, no one really knows what happens during it until you're 32, 33 weeks pregnant. All of a sudden you're like, wait, what? You know, and as someone who wants to get pregnant at some point myself, you know, when I first started doing this work, I didn't have kids. I still don't have kids. And was sort of like, this is so wild that the body does all this. And I had no idea. And it's something that we don't talk about. So yeah, a lot of it. So that was one aspect of it. And then it's also what you're saying is someone could be like, you know, contractions really hurt, or, you know, you're going to bleed postpartum. But until it happens to you, you know, one, your experience is going to be really different than someone else's. And two, until you experience it, it's very easy to like not have it land in the way that it actually is as you're going through it. You know, it like is in one ear, out the other, and your body's going through the experience. You're like, oh my God, no one told me. But really, it's like, I couldn't have possibly understood what they meant until like I'm in it. So yeah, so much of it is just how do we let go of that plan and be comfortable not having control? Because that's really what all this is about, right? Like, how do we be okay with the fact that we don't get to control everything? And how do we, you know, we use the metaphor of being like in a jungle. You like enter the jungle and it's just green in front of you. There's no path. You don't get a map, and you have to freaking figure out how to get through. And it's going to change at any moment. You know, a monkey could swing by. There's a stick. You just have no idea. So what's the point of even trying to find a path or anything like that, or like look for one if it's going to change anyway, and instead focus on, okay, how do we move through this? How do I pay attention? How do I ask for help? How do I set myself up with a team of people who can support me, you know, and clear some roadblocks for me instead of people who are going to like throw an extra stick into the road so that I trip.
Oh, I feel like you're bringing up so many things here. I've got like 12 questions now. So yes, I love all of that because I have heard often over the years, something along the lines of, you know, I had no idea. And I'm like, how did you not know? Because for me, I ask everybody, I'm like, tell me all about your birth story. I know all the details, the nitty gritty. So I want to know everything. So I'm always amazed that women get pregnant and get to the point where they're giving birth and they just had no idea. It's kind of like the name of your book. It makes sense. I mean, because seems to be a lot of stigma around giving birth generally in our society, just like there is a lot of stigma with periods. Totally. So with all of that said, you mentioned a team. What's the ideal, or is there even an ideal for everyone? Does it look different for people?
Yeah. And that's exactly it. There is no ideal. You really need to take the time to figure out where you feel safest and need to have accurate information, both about statistics and data and about your own unique circumstances, body experience, trauma, etc., to be able to make that decision. So, you know, one of the things that I always like to say, because this is false, this is information that we don't get, is that if you are low risk, you live close to a hospital, you're working with a trained practitioner, giving birth at home is just as safe. The statistics actually show as if you give birth in a hospital. And a lot of people don't know that. But I think that's a really important thing to share, because that then levels the playing ground for people to then think about, oh, okay, safety. How do I feel about being in a hospital? For some people, they're like, without an epidural, I'm not giving birth. So very clearly, giving birth at home isn't right for them. But for someone else who says, oh, I really like the idea of going to the hospital to give birth is so scary to me. Like, that makes me feel scared.
Yeah.
Knowing that, oh, giving birth at home is even an option that is also safe in certain circumstances is information that a lot of people don't have.
Right.
So that's like the information part of it. And then again, like, you know, there are midwives that work in hospitals. There are birth centers, which is neither a hospital nor giving birth at home. So there is just to get out there that there is more than the option of giving birth in a hospital, I think is new information for a lot of people.
It's incredible. I mean, what are the stats in that? Isn't it like in the 1950s, or 40s, 97% or something like that of women gave birth outside of hospitals, and now it's completely flipped?
it's like today it's like less than 1% of people. And it's interesting because with COVID, a lot of people are not, the home birth midwives are overrun right now because
this is what I keep hearing.
I
feel like
so
that's
it's been
incredible.
really interesting, and I'm very interested to see what happens after this, if that trend continues. But again, like, because you're scared to go to the hospital now because of COVID isn't a good reason to give birth at home. Like, there's preparation and understand. That's like, like, it's a very different experience that you also need to really dive deep inside to figure out if that's truly the right choice for you, or is that another decision made out of fear because you don't want to go to the hospital right now.
I completely agree with you. It's so interesting. A really good friend of mine who lives in Connecticut, she is about to give birth to her third baby, and that's supposed to happen around the end of April. And, obviously, like many, many others who are now in this situation, she has weighed all the pros and cons for everything. And we were just talking about having a plan, and she has made multiple plans. She hired a nanny who's been in quarantine for many, many weeks because she's got 2 kids at home, and she doesn't have a doula, so she needs her husband to be there. And it's like all these things. And then at the last minute, they've just changed her hospital because the hospital that she was going to be at is now a COVID hospital. So she's going to another hospital, and the midwife that she wanted is not available anymore. It's just like all of these things. And then she was going to do an induction so that at least she could plan to have the nanny there with her 2 kids. But then, like, that induction, they've now canceled inductions because those are non-essential, which is incredible to me. So she's like, I just give up. I've tried all of the planning, and there's no point. So it's really interesting to see that play out with someone who's really close to me. And I imagine that that's the case for hundreds of thousands of people all over the country and possibly the world.
Yeah. I mean, it is just a tough time. It's being pregnant is so hard to begin with. Giving birth is so hard to begin with. And this is just unfathomable. It's unfathomable how much extra stuff the situation we're in today adds to that experience.
Oh my God. I cannot.
My heart goes out to people who are pregnant right now. But I think it's also important to remember that, on the flip side, that people have been giving birth, I don't want, for anyone who's watching right now and who is pregnant and, giving birth soon, that, like, we've been doing this for a long time. And luckily now, in a lot of the places where they're still restricting visitors in lots of birthing places, in hospitals. But at least now they're mandating that one person be allowed. So
yes,
that's good news.
It is really good news. So coming back to doulas, because I think that's another thing too. I mean, we tend to live in a bit of a bubble, a women's health bubble. And so we're fully in, well, you're obviously a doula, so you definitely are in that world. I'm very much immersed in that world. What about people who don't know what doulas do? Like, what, how do you
like,
serve
what the heck
people?
is a doula?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Wow. So one thing I always like to distinguish, because a lot of times midwives get clumped in with doulas, and we are not the same, and it's almost a disservice. I mean, I'm a doula, doulas are amazing, but it's almost truly a disservice to midwives, because midwives were the people who started caring for people during pregnancy from the very beginning. They've been around for the longest. They were here way before physicians and deserve it's really a shame. And it feels like a crime to me, truly, that the average person doesn't know what a midwife is. I think it's one of the greatest disservices to reproductive health of all time. So shout out to any and all of the midwives out there. Really appreciate you. So midwives are clinical.
Incredible.
If you have a midwife, I mean, it's possible to have an OB and a midwife, but for the most part, if you're working with a midwife, that's your clinical provider. You're not working with an OB as well. They're the person who's going to help catch your baby. They're the person doing your gynecological exams. They're administering IVs. If you're giving birth in a hospital and you're working with a midwife, they're going to be the one ordering the epidural for you. They're managing your care. The big difference is that they will not use certain instruments. So like if you need a vacuum, which is like a suction that goes to the baby's head that helps as you push, give a little pull, or forceps, which is similar idea, except with a different tool. Sometimes they'll call it an OB for that, or surgery. That would be the other biggest case. And if you're giving birth at home, midwives, they have IVs too. They can administer medications. they can resuscitate babies. So they're not lay people. They're people who are really trained. And then, you know, of course, there's also indigenous midwives or non-clinically, well, they're still providing the clinical role, but they haven't gone, you know, like to school, for lack of a better word, for it. Who bring in a whole other set of knowledge outside of even anything that we know of that's linked to a whole heritage and lineage. So doulas, on the other hand, are not clinical. We provide advocacy, education, and emotional support. So, you know, we help you navigate conversations with your care provider. So you could have an OB and a doula. You can have a midwife and a doula, but you would not have a doula without an OB or a midwife. So that's kind of that's the big difference. Does that help some?
I hope it does. I hope it's helpful for whoever's listening or watching. Yeah, because I was thinking about that, you know, like we have, you know, we've so moved away from this kind of support during birth in our society. And then I feel like the business of being born just blew the doors right open again on something that had been literally shut down for 40 something, 50 something years. And, you know, and like, I remember watching that movie 10, 11 years ago, whenever it came out, and thinking, what? I mean, my mind was so blown. And even then I was like, I don't know if I want kids, but I had to share it with everyone. And I was barely even in this world doing this work. And I could feel the importance of film like that. And so I think that has, you know, that set off, you know, it was like a catalyst almost for so much of the work so many people are doing, like you, everyone.
It literally changed birth trends changed after that film.
Oh, I'm sure it did. Yeah, I'm sure. And I mean, like, I feel like policies changed in hospitals, all kinds of things happened. So, oh, what? I'm losing you. I'm losing half your face.
On my back. I know I have a tripod, but for whatever reason, it's like, it keeps slinking back down. So I'm holding it now.
No, somebody needs to come up with something that works, because mine is currently sitting on my computer right now because the tripod thing, I gave up on it. It's just like, whatever. Anyway, so why did no one tell me this? Is there like a key thing that you want to share about your book that, you know, that people who are giving birth or potentially getting pregnant should know?
It's a great question.
I know, right? There's so many.
I mean, I would just say the biggest thing goes to what I spoke of before, and there's like three main things that we really get across. One is that the mindset matters. So really addressing your emotional and mental state in addition to taking care of your physical body. The other is remembering that you have rights as a pregnant person in the United States. We're really privileged. And of course, they're not upheld all the time, particularly for those of color. The differences in healthcare, the stats are really embarrassing for us as a country. And but that to remember that you can advocate for yourself, and you can say no, and you can ask questions, and that birth is not just an outcome, but it's an experience, right? There's so much emphasis on, is someone going to live through this, which is so crazy. Like the expectation today, obviously, you know, things happen, but you know, it isn't just whether someone lives or dies. Of course, you want the outcome to be someone lives, but the experience of giving birth matters. It's what carries into your entire postpartum experience, which is your beginning of your parenting journey, which is what's going to take you and lead you on to whatever's next. And I think we have, as soon as birth transferred from the hands of midwives into physicians, we lost that. Mm-hmm. And it's, again, like one of, I think, biggest shames for people with ovaries and with the uterus, that this is an experience that was really taken from us.
I love that you've just said that, because I completely agree. I think that it's very much connected to the work that I'm doing as well, with regard to the fact that, you know, in many cases, we're just not taken seriously. Our fears, our health concerns, you know, many times they're just dismissed. And I feel like that very much ties into the birthing world as well. like when you're talking about people's rights when they are giving birth. Like you were one of the first people who clued me into this phenomenon known as obstetric violence. I interviewed someone on the podcast about it, and I got so much pushback. I think I even told you last year, I got so much pushback, people telling me that I needed to take this episode down. These were all medical professionals, yes, saying that it was highly irresponsible of me to put that out there. And I was like, well, just because you haven't heard of obstetric violence doesn't mean that it doesn't exist or that it's not becoming a more widespread problem. So I'm curious, do you have any thoughts on that? Because I feel like this is a topic and I want to cover it.
Totally. I mean, to start, I want to say there are amazing physicians out there. Of course, there are amazing OBGYNs. This isn't to slam an entire profession. Obviously, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But it's also to say that, and as someone who's attended over 100 births in New York City, I see it happen all the time, where people's perineal areas are cut without consent. Like literally it happens. Oh yeah, I just cut you. Or they're upping medication that makes someone contract more without telling them that they're doing that. Those are illegal actions. Like they are actually against the law. And when someone is in a vulnerable position, right? One's a doctor, so already you have this like hierarchy of status of some way. Plus the person's stripped down naked in a itchy, scratchy, like robe thing, and you're going through one of the hardest experiences of your life. It's much harder to be like, well, excuse me, like what dosage are you giving me? That's really hard to do. When you're in the middle of giving birth, which is why having an advocate, having a doula can be so important. But there are things like that happen all the time. Refusing a home birth transfer, all being, just being cruel, racism, like not offering pain. We see this all the time of women of color not being offered pain medication the same way white women are, which like is directly stems from our history of birth in America, where it was literally written in the medical textbooks that Black women do not experience pain, and that white women need to be saved by men from the perils of childbirth, which are greater than that of war. That's like literally what the rhetoric was, and that you see it in our systems today.
Yeah.
So it is definitely real. You need to look no further than Googling it and you'll see. I mean, there was a case, a woman just won millions of dollars because the policy of the hospital was that a doctor needed to be present while someone was pushing, and there wasn't a doctor around. So the nurse, because of the policy of the hospital, and she didn't want to get fired and she didn't want to get in trouble, held the baby's head into a woman who was needed to push, and she tore, there was damage, etc. So it's things like that where these things are real, and they happen all the time, unfortunately. And it's private hospitals, it's public hospitals, it's everywhere.
I have no doubt. I mean, I was stunned to hear, first of all, what you just said to me, but also what Meredith, who I interviewed as well, another doula on the podcast about this. And I mean, it is just stunning. And because I'm not in that parent subculture, I don't think I hear as much, maybe, although like I said, I ask all the questions. I feel like I'm so detail oriented when I'm hearing about birth stories. And I think that generally speaking, the friends that I have are in this wellness space, and so they are possibly more informed, and some of them are, or most of them are using birth centers, and they're also using midwives and doulas, so the likelihood of them experiencing what you've described is probably significantly less. Whereas someone who has, who doesn't either can't afford this support or just doesn't even know that it's out there, like you said, they must be at much higher risk for having all of these kinds of issues happen to them. And they don't even know that it's not okay, that it's not wrong. Just like period problems, we don't know those are not normal. And yet, and so we just live with it.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, totally. And I just need to add, because it is important to say that there's some research that shows that women of color with PhDs are actually more likely to experience some of this than not. So you can actually, it's in some cases, it doesn't matter how much you know, right? It's just like racism in our institutions that shows itself in that way. I mean, and think of like, I think it was Serena that the whole case happened to, not Venus, where she knew that something was wrong and no one listened to her. And if she did not have the wherewithal to demand, and also obviously she's famous, so the care she was receiving is going to be very different than the average person. So in that way, she's lucky, but still she had to fight to be heard that something was wrong, and she could have died.
Yep. It's incredible to me. It gives me goosebumps. I feel rage about it, because I'm sure you do too, because you've obviously witnessed it. But so as a doula, what happens in a situation like that? Like, what happens if you have a client and you're, present in a birthing room and the doctor's going to just do an episiotomy? Like, what do you do?
It's tough. And part of it, this is where education is so important, ahead of, as much as you can for people ahead of time. So like in prenatals, I always say, and this is like something for a tip that's in our book, to like, before you start pushing, especially if you have an epidural, like you're likely not feeling your contractions, there's time to say, hey, if you feel like you need to give me an episiotomy, please ask me before you do it. So there's some things like that. And if you are able to have a partner or a doula there to remind you to do that at the time, that's something that is helpful. And then and again, so much of this, and this is again why just support in birth is so important, and why restrictions, in New York, when this first started, they weren't even allowing partners. There was a period of time where people were laboring by themselves in hospitals. And this is why it is just so outrageous and dangerous, right? Because if you don't have someone that, it like goes back to what I was saying before, it's very hard to just advocate for yourself when you're in this position. Totally. So, having someone else there to, a recommendation is made. I think we should start you on Pitocin, and you don't know how you feel. Asking for 5 minutes alone without any pressure or anyone in the room, to just have a moment to breathe. How do I feel about this? You may be totally on board, right? But you want to be able to look back on that experience and feel like, well, even if this is not at all what I wanted a totally unmedicated birth, and I ended up with Pitocin and epidural and X, Y, or Z, at least I was part of the decision, and I felt like it was what I needed each step of the way, instead of looking back and thinking to yourself, wait, maybe, what if I didn't have it at that point in time? Like, they just said that I needed it, so I did it. What if I had waited? What if I this? What if I that? So those are just some of the ways.
So good, truly. So, okay. Talk to me about your book. Where do people find it? Tell us all about it. Yes.
Yeah.
So good stuff.
You can find it anywhere that books are sold, obviously Amazon. And I think indiebooks.com is the place for indie bookstores. So anywhere there. Okay. If you want to leave a review on Amazon, that would be so helpful for us, anyone. Well, apparently that's how it works, I'm learning. Even if you don't get it from there, you want to support your local bookstore and then make a
I know. I feel like you can also leave a review on Amazon even if you haven't purchased the book from Amazon. So that's good too. Yes. Totally. Thank God for that little thing that we all get to do. I will definitely leave a review for your book. And I am just so glad that you and Natalia, who couldn't be here sadly, Natalia is Ash's co-author.
Yeah, so everyone knows. We need a 3-screen split. We can't do that yet.
Yeah, I know. Instagram needs to get with the program, but yeah, I'm so glad you guys have written this book, because like we were just talking about, just this basic thing that is, so many women and people who are giving birth don't know about. They have no clue that all of these things that have happened to them that don't feel very good are potentially against the rules or against the law. And they don't know. They go on and they're scarred from their birth experience mentally and physically. And they have no recourse, or they don't even know that they do. So I'm really just so happy that this book is out here, and it's speaking about, not only that obviously, but like so many other things that are related to birth that people might not even know about.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun to chat with you, and I can't wait. I think it's next week where I get to talk to you.
Yes.
Yes, which is, so much of it's so connected, right? Because why don't we know anything about birth? Because we don't know anything about our periods. And we have like a whole bit of the book just dedicated to like, meet your uterus. Like, it has contractions that you experience in labor while you've never felt them like this before. They're actually menstrual cramps. That is what, right? Like menstrual cramps are contractions. So all these things that seem so foreign, your body has actually done before. So
exactly.
Isn't that incredible? It's a nice connection.
I know. We don't even know to put two and two together because no one has ever even shared the most vital information. So we will talk all about it next week.
Cool.
All right, Ash, thank you so much. Thank you so much. All over on Facebook and on YouTube and all the places. So we'll make sure to link the books.
Yes.
Your book
Are you going to save the recording?
Girl, okay. I need to end this recording and then apparently I can save it, but I never see the button to save it. I don't know. There's another way. We're able to download it another way because apparently I'm just not good with this Instagram thing. So we'll see.
To me.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye. See you soon. Bye, everyone.